A rate moves from 4% to 5%. How large is the change? One person says 1%. Another says 25%. A careful explanation uses two different labels. The rate rose by 1 percentage point, and the new rate is 25% higher than the old rate. Those statements are not rivals. They measure the same move in different ways. Imagine a fictional classroom display comparing two annual rates. The old dial reads 4% and the new dial reads 5%. No real account, lender, institution, offer, or product is being described. The numbers are chosen because the arithmetic is visible without a calculator. The dials establish the only event in the lesson: a rate moved from 4 to 5. First, picture each rate as dots out of 100. 4% means 4 marked dots in a field of 100. 5% means 5 marked dots in an equal field of 100. The second field contains one additional marked dot. Because both fields use the same 100-dot scale, the direct distance between the displayed rates is 1 point on that scale. The ruler makes that distance explicit. It places 4% at one mark and 5% at the next mark. Subtracting the old rate from the new rate gives 5% minus 4%, which equals 1 percentage point. The phrase percentage point names an absolute gap between two percentages. It does not divide the gap by either rate. Now ask a different question: how large is that 1 point change compared with where the rate started? The starting rate is 4%, so 4 becomes the comparison base. The change is 1 point. 1 divided by 4 equals 1/4, and 1/4 is 25%. That is the relative percent increase in the rate itself. The ring scene preserves that denominator. It divides the old 4% rate into 4 equal 1-point parts. The increase occupies one of those 4 parts. That visible 1 out of 4 relationship is why the relative change is 25%. If the old rate were different, the same 1-point move could produce a different relative percentage. The base controls the relative answer. A claim sorter can now place the two statements in separate bins. The label plus 1 percentage point belongs under rate gap. The label plus 25% belongs under relative change. Writing only rose by 1% is ambiguous because readers may not know whether 1% names a point gap or a relative comparison. Precise units remove that uncertainty. A fictional USD example shows why the language matters. Apply 4% and 5% separately to the same $10,000 classroom base for one simplified period. 4% of $10,000 is $400. 5% of $10,000 is $500. The displayed amount differs by $100. This scene does not promise earnings, define a real product, include compounding, or model fees. It only gives both rates an identical amount base. Notice that the $100 amount change is not the percentage point calculation. Percentage points compare 4% with 5%. The USD bands compare two illustrative amounts created from the same $10,000 base. Keeping rate, amount, and comparison base in separate labels prevents a valid arithmetic example from becoming a vague claim. The switchboard offers a useful language test. If the question asks for the distance between two rates, answer in percentage points. If the question asks how large the change is relative to the old rate, calculate the difference divided by the old rate and answer in percent. The old rate belongs in the denominator because it is the stated starting reference. The translation triangle closes the lesson. Its first corner shows 4% moving to 5%. Its second corner translates that move into a 1 percentage point gap. Its third corner translates the same move into a 25% relative increase. Every edge remains visible, so no label is mistaken for a new event. A reverse check reaches the same structure. 25% of the old 4% rate equals 1 percentage point. Adding that 1 point to the old 4% returns the new 5% rate. The check does not turn 25% into 25 points, it keeps the relative multiplier attached to the old rate. Another audit begins with the fixed ruler: 4% sits one tick below 5%. The 100-dot fields then confirm 4 marked dots becoming 5. Finally, the sorter routes the 1-point gap and 25% relative change into separate bins. These scenes repeat the labels without changing the event or denominator. Percentage points and percent change are therefore two lenses, not two competing answers. State the old rate, state the new rate, name the point gap, and identify the denominator before naming a relative percentage. This fictional example is educational only, not financial advice, and it is not a recommendation about any rate, account, loan, saving choice, or financial product.